Welcome to Wild, Women in Lending Determined to Make an Impact. I'm your host, Robyn LaVassaur. They say our biggest fear isn't being inadequate, it's being powerful beyond measure. In this podcast, I will share how to break through imaginary ceilings, lean into success, discovering your purpose, and understanding how to create the business and life of your dreams. From failures to triumphs and all the tactics in between, let's jump into the wild arena together. Welcome back to Wild with Robyn LaVassaur, the art of the story. How often do you sit with your clients and simply intake an application? Ask them the basics: name, date of birth, social security, or even, I'll call it worse yet, maybe not better yet, have the internet do it, right? On online application, they fill in all the details and you simply call and confirm. And we're taking a really great application, and you think about this in any facet of sales, you're intaking information. And if you're simply going through the bullet points, the non-emotional questions, you think about how quickly people can answer things. They're processing through their quick information center, right? Data in, data out. And that's the front part of our brain, apparently. I'm by no means neuroscience, study the brain in any way, shape, or form, but I've taken enough classes, listened to enough podcasts, read enough books, and ultimately spent enough time with, I think, one of the greats in the business in terms of teaching how the brain ultimately works and change management's influence, not manipulation, but influence, in my dear friend, Rene Rodriguez. So for sure, check out his Amplify podcast. Everything about Rene is so incredibly valuable. If you get a chance to go to his workshop for a couple days and truly learn not only how the brain works, but then what you can bring out in yourself to be better for your clients, it's a huge win. You know, one of the things that I think is interesting is imagine going to the doctor and simply giving very quick synopsis of information and never telling the story. Now, the truth is, even if the doctor doesn't really want to listen, you often get an opportunity to tell a story of what happened, right? How it happened, why it happened. Now, the doctor doesn't generally tell you anything back but a prognosis, marching orders of what to do after you told the story. But imagine what that visit would feel like if you never told a story, never explained anything, simply said, I have stomach pain or my foot hurts. And there was no other questions asked. It was just in and out intake of information. Man, a lot could go wrong. I'd feel very uneasy with the diagnosis that the doctor gave, knowing that they really didn't have full context of what just happened. Well, interestingly enough, when we sit down with clients, it is oftentimes our job, well, I will say it is our job, not only to ask them questions that possibly spark a story from them, but even more importantly, that we allow ourselves to tell a story. And why is that so important? When you can tether your head to your heart, your overall decision-making is actually in the long-term portion of your brain. It's in a space where it's thinking more methodically, right? Where it's really giving all the pros and cons and processing information in a slower manner, but more assured versus fight or flight, right? Data in, data out, quick information. When we're in quick information, everything feels more scattered, scary, less experience-based, and ultimately, we might not even be 100% truthful as a client with our loan officer about all the things that we're thinking about, things that we're truly concerned about. And what I have found is that through stories, you can open people up and they are willing then to tell you their stories, their reasons, and you can make sure that not only are you getting them approved to buy a house, you're getting them approved based on knowing more about them, their needs, and how to truly navigate what is seemingly one of the most stressful processes on the planet. And so where and when do you tell a story? I'll give you an example. When my husband and I bought our first house, we had a story that came with it. I didn't share that for years. Went to an Amplify for Rene Rodriguez and literally blew my mind. It dawned on me that I had not done a great job of storytelling while I was meeting with clients. And so after that, I learned that this was going to be one of my business signature stories. Let me give you an example. First-time home buyers sitting down. Of course, what do first-time home buyers say? They're often nervous, sometimes excited, scared, definitely pensive or trepidatious about what the next steps are. Are they truly getting approved? Are they going to be able to pay that mortgage? How? A higher payment that's locked in for 30 years and you bought it, you own it. You're going to have to take care of the roof and the dishwasher and the yard and all of the different things that feels very different from renting is scary. In fact, it's a massive purchase, generally the largest purchase that anyone will ever make. When there's no story, there's just data in, data out, and you say, you're approved. Here's for how much. Here's your monthly payment. Here's your cash to close. Any questions? Or let me email all this over to you and you process and just go look at houses. When they all of a sudden aren't cooperating with conditions, they're worried about something, they're freak out and want to get out of contract the moment repairs come up. Part of that is they are still in fight or flight mode because we never took them out of it and got them tethered head to heart and really into long-term thinking. Now, we all know in lending that a house is the single smartest investment on the planet that you could make. I don't care how old you are. In fact, it thrills me when you're 18 years old and you're ready to buy a house and take that responsibility on because you start to build your wealth at such a young age. And if we truly believe that, then our job is not to manipulate, but for sure to influence those clients into understanding what they're about to do. So how do you do it? Well, for me, first-time homebuyers, my husband and I might say to the client, hey, can I tell you a story? And I'll go through all of the things, right? Being young, we'd never bought a house before. We'd only been renters. We'd had to have moved a couple different times due to landlord situations. That's a piece to the story where we're sharing pain, right? Landlords that won't let you have a dog, won't let you paint, won't take care of something, raise your rent, ask you to move, and then you have to come up with first and last on the next house. They want long-term tenants, so 6 months, a year, locking you in. All of the things that as a renter, I actually never realized that pain. I was more scared of home ownership. So there's a brief little story in it, right? Hey, let's go through a longer version. We had a 2-year-old and we had brand new triplets in my story. Maybe you can't tell that, but I could in mine. And I was able to say, hey, as a first-time homebuyer, my husband and I decided to buy a house right after we had our triplets. And we got pre-approved officially in, I'll never forget it, in November of 2002. We started looking for a house, and wouldn't you know it, we got into contract right away, and we were scared to death. In fact, our mortgage payment was going up $381, I'll never forget the number, more than our rent. And I thought, there's no way. There's never any money left. In fact, we hadn't saved anything for a down payment. We had medical bills coming in from having the kids. There were so many things in my mind that would have given us a why to not do it in that moment, to not have said yes. And yet I was in the industry. I was an assistant at the time, and we pushed forward and we bought the house. We did it with very little money down. We did it at a time when rates were not super low. And we bought a house that really didn't fit our needs completely, but it was the kind of the ugly duckling of a house on a nice street, a street where everybody else took care of things. And so I was literally able to get into a home with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a nice little great room. And we outgrew it, I think, the day we moved in, but it didn't matter. It was ours, right? We were able to paint, get a dog, do all of the things. And over the next 3 years, just shy of 3 full years, we did things every single time we had extra money. A Christmas bonus, a tax refund, which we weren't really getting previously, but now we owned this home and we were getting a larger tax refund. We would take that money and invest it back and developing the actual house. Well, I mentioned that we had already outgrown it. So for sure, when the kids are up and running, we were busting at the seams and knew that we were ready for our next home. And at this point, I'm an actual loan officer. And as we went to sell our house, we got everything perfect. Funny little thing, I actually tried to sell it for sale by owner. It was awful, completely awful. I was panicked. I just become a loan officer. I thought, I'm going to do this thing for sale by owner. It was a terrible idea, just so you know. Agents were worth their weight in gold. I finally listed it with an actual agent, had people come through. There was a bidding war. We got a great offer on it. And here's the shocking part. My husband and I don't come from any money. We didn't have any opportunity to be saved or bailed out, which meant everything really rode on the decisions that we were making. This house felt so scary a few years prior. We made every payment. We made it on time. Yes, we could still live and do some things with our children. We were able to get a dog and figure all of those things out. And then the magic was we sold that house just as we got it perfect. But when we sold it, we made $75,000 tax-free. That was the start of a life-changing event, right? We could have never imagined. In fact, on our wages, we could have never saved $75,000. So what did it? Yes, we made payments. Didn't feel like those really made a dent. What really did it was the market. And so we can go into average appreciation. We can talk about how the wealth is built. For first-time homebuyers, I would tell that story every single loan consultation, right? And depending on my audience, I would maybe shift things a little bit, all of it true, all of it very authentic, and all of it very much able to touch on things that they might be afraid of, that they might be already thinking, cover my basis on what really took place because I've already been there, right? You are most qualified to help the person that you once were. Gosh, I can really help these first-time homebuyers because I have been there. Now, I've been a move-up buyer, I've been an investor, I've been an Airbnb purchaser, and so I have a multitude of stories. You might not have all of those. You might have stories of other people that you were able to help that have great outcomes that you were able to reflect on and have access to, right? And so when you can give people a real life story, I think about this when it comes to my church. The lead pastor is so special, and I know at some point he's going to retire. And you think to yourself, is he really that much better than everyone else? Well, here's what he is. He is an incredible storyteller. He is so good at understanding how to frame something, how to message it, and then how to tie it all down. And so in my story, I might say, I hear you are scared to buy a house. Let me tell you a little story about when I was scared and walk them through it and then tie it all down with making $75,000 at the end of a 3-year period when that was more money than we were practically making in a year, and what that could do for us either on purchasing our next house, getting out of that medical debt from the kids, ultimately life-changing. Now, had I had my head on straight, we might have kept that house as a rental, but at the time it didn't work for us, and I've never ultimately regretted selling it. I can tie all of those things in while I'm talking to a client, and all of a sudden, we're on a more personal level. They know a true story that I was part of in some way. And ultimately, if I'm doing it right with the frame and the message and the tie down, they've connected here to here, and they feel more resolved, a little less scared, a little more excitement about becoming a homeowner. And so if you don't actually use stories in your ability to influence, you can use this in parenting and marriage and friendships and speaking in general, and talking to somebody on the phone that you don't even know. A story will help you influence. And one of the great things that Renee Rodriguez says in Amplify is a chicken is just a piece of chicken. And it could be on the dollar menu at Kentucky Fried Chicken, or it could be a $50 piece of chicken on a plate at a restaurant. But if we're being honest, it's just chicken. Oh, but the chicken on the plate at that restaurant for $50, that's where the story comes in, right? That's where they add all the other ingredients. That's where the chef is magical in what they do. And all of a sudden you think that's the best chicken you've ever had. And that's really because the story came with it. So use stories, develop some signature stories, and do yourself a favor, invest in a course, even if you just read the book, Amplify Your Influence. I get no plugs from Renee whatsoever, but I can't speak highly enough about what he can teach you in terms of change and influence in your clients and in your business that ultimately will help you not only grow, but feel more connected to every single person you get to help. If this was helpful to you, I hope you share it. We'll see you on the next Wild.